As most of you guys know, the Wishkeeper exotic bow is finally here in Season of the Wish, and I wanted to make some Strand builds featuring the bow. Now, I've already dropped a Hunter build on the channel. In this video, I'm going to be featuring the Warlock. So let's talk about the exotic bow. Now, it is craftable just like previous exotic mission weapons that we can get. Again, over the next coming weeks, we are going to get bonuses to the Snare Weaver intrinsic perk. If you don't know what it does, precision hits and final blows build energy towards the Snare Weaver arrow that can be fired from the hip. On impact, Snare Weaver arrows create a pattern of traps to suspend nearby targets. Essentially, it's a mix between Hierarchy of Needs and the Verglas curve. Again, we need the precision hits and kills to build up the main arrow, and then we can hip fire it to use it. And again, we'll be able to get a variety of bowstrings and arrows on top of that with grips. And then we have its trait perk, which is Silkbound Slayer, which automatically comes on the weapon. So this weapon deals bonus damage to suspended targets, gain faster draw time for a short duration when you suspend a target from any source, or damage a suspended target with this weapon. Suspend is going to be a big factor with this bow and it performing very well. And like I said, over the next coming weeks, we will be able to get some catalyst refits for it. Again, we can get Vorpal Weapon refit with Hatchling refit as well, but we do have two perks that are very specific toward it, which is Enduring Snare refit, so Snare Weaver traps last longer. Then we also have Multi-Threaded Snare refit, which Snare Weaver traps can suspend more targets. Now, we'll be pairing the bow with the exotic boots called the Swarmers. So destroying a tangle spawns a threadling. No, it spawns like 2 threadlings, but the main thing is that your threadlings unravel targets that they damage. So the threadlings can cause that unravel debuff, which gives us a variety of bonuses this season in particular. Now, the reason I'm using Swarmers over something like Necrotic Grip is that, number one, with Necrotic Grip, it just performs a lot better with Weapons of Sorrow, you know, things like Thorn, Osteostriga, Necrochasm, weapons like that. Since this bow is not a Weapon of Sorrow, we can't just cause spread by getting a kill with it, but you could potentially use the exotic if you want. I just found this one to be a lot more effective just because of the seasonal bonuses. Now, I do want to cover the subclass before we talk about the artifact perks, because there are a couple of very important things here. So for our abilities, I'm going to be rocking the Healing Rift. I like Burst Glide for movement, but you can use what you like. Again, we only have the one melee, which is Arcane Needle, and note this does unravel targets as well. And then lastly, I'm going with the Shackle Grenade. Not necessarily to toss at targets to suspend them and stop unstoppable champions, but because of the bonus with Mindspun Invocation. Basically, with this Strand aspect, it gives us bonuses to each of our grenades. And with the Shackle Grenade in particular, if you hold your grenade button to consume it, you gain a buff called Weaver's Trance. So final blows while Weaver's Trance is active create a suspending detonation, which can hit multiple targets, which allows us to take advantage of other things. And for our second aspect, we're going to be using the Wanderer. So tangles you throw attach to targets and detonate into a suspending burst. Destroying a tangle creates a suspending burst after a short delay. And then we also have Threadling Final Blows create a tangle, but we're automatically going to get that because of the Swarmers. The main thing is that your tangle is going to be able to fly straight. You don't have to predict the arc of it or anything, and it can cause a suspending effect. Plus, if we destroy it, it can also spawn Threadlings because of the Swarmers. Now, for our fragments, would highly recommend Thread Generation, so any damage that I deal with my abilities and my weapons, regardless, will give me grenade energy. It is a -10 to discipline. I also like Thread of Warding, so picking up a Orb of Power grants Woven Mail. It is a -10 resilience, but Woven Mail can give you even more damage resistance on top of your tier 10 100 resilience. I also like Thread of Evolution here, so Threadlings travel farther and deal additional damage. It's a +10 to Intellect. Threadlings got a buff last season to where they can do 30% more damage, so that's automatically W. Definitely recommend this one. And then lastly, I personally like Thread of Wisdom, so defeating suspended targets creates an Orb of Power. Since we're going to be able to suspend targets through Weaver's Trance and the bow, plus the Wanderer, I figured we might as well create Orbs of Power for everybody. If you didn't want to use Thread of Wisdom, you could also use something like Thread of Continuity. So basically, all Strand debuffs will last longer, and we are going to be unraveling a lot of targets, and we're also going to be suspending a lot of targets, and having those effects last a little bit longer could be beneficial. Now, under the artifact, the two main Strand ones are on the top row here. So we have Unraveling Orbs. Picking up an Orb of Power grants Strand weapons Unraveling rounds. So if you don't have the Unstoppable Bow mod on, again, you can take this off if you'd like, and then you can technically get anti-barrier with the bow with Unraveling rounds. All you have to do is pick up an Orb of Power and boom, you get it right then and there. And then the second one is Horde Shuttle. This is kind of the important one. So damaging unravel targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling. And as we know, any Threadling that we have can cause unravel. So we can pretty much constantly have that debuff going on a variety of targets. Note, I will be taking advantage of solar weapons here. So first up, I'm grabbing Flame, Fiber, and Freeze to take advantage of the Solar Strand Siphon mod that I can put on the helmet. Then I'd highly recommend Flint Striker. So rapid solar weapon, precision hits, or final blows grant Radiant. Radiant is going to be a big portion here, mainly because of Torch. So while you're Radiant, you deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by Strand and stasis debuffs. And since we're going to have a lot of Strand debuffs on the field, as long as we're Radiant, whether it's from us or our teammates, anything like that, it's basically free weapon damage. Now note, you will be able to scorch unscorched targets while you're Radiant with Kindling Trigger, and if you're using a precision style weapon, something like a Trace Rifle for example, while you're Radiant, Solar Precision Final Blows can cause a combatant to ignite. If you're going to use something like a Fusion Rifle, something that's not, precision oriented, you could switch this out for a Solo Operative if you're solo, or something like Argent Ordnance if you are using rockets to get more damage. And then for the last two, I talk about every video. Definitely put on From Whence You Came to have that increased ability damage to take and scorn combatants this season, especially for the dungeon. Definitely needed. And then Wished Into Being, while your super is nearly fully charged, ability Final Blows spawn Orbs of Power. Next, talking about the armor mods, starting with the helmet. Like I said, I'm taking advantage of the Solar Strand Dual Siphon mod, so any rapid solar and strand weapon Final Blows will create Orbs of Power. And then I personally like a ammo finder. Again, I have a heavy ammo finder on here, but if you want to switch out for a special ammo finder, that's totally fine. I just figured we're not going to really take advantage of assets with the grenade. You could potentially use hands-on or dynamo if you'd like, but I think the ammo finder is just more beneficial here. On the gauntlets, I'm rocking double impact induction, so when I cause damage with my melee, it gives me a reduction to my grenade cooldown, and then also focusing strike, so grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a powered melee attack. On the chest piece, you can rock whatever combination of reserve and resistance mods that you'd like. Again, I am going to be using a solar special and heavy weapon, so I definitely want solar reserves on, and then put on whatever else you like. On my boots here, I'm rocking recuperation, so it replenishes my health every time I gain an orb of power. Again, this is going to be one of the main ways we can get health back with this type of build. Then I'm also using solar and strand weapon surge, so those weapons gain a small bonus to damage while I have any armor charge. Your armor charge now decays over time. Essentially, when you collect an orb of power, it gives you an armor charge. With any of these blue mods, those armor charges last 10 seconds. And with this build in particular, we can have a total of 3 armor charges, so that means we have 30 seconds of this bonus weapon damage. And then lastly on the class item, I'm rocking double bomber, so I get a reduction to my grenade cooldown when I use my class ability. And then lastly, time dilation. Your decaying armor charge has a longer duration, so that 10 seconds that I mentioned actually gets bumped up to 15 seconds, so I can have 45 seconds of that bonus weapon damage with 3 armor charges. Now for stats to focus on, we talk about every video, try to have tier 10 100 resilience, 30% damage reduction. We definitely want this for survival purposes. Secondly, I would focus on discipline. Discipline is tied to your grenade and how fast we can get that back, and we definitely want that chakra grenade back as quickly as possible to take advantage of Weaver's Trance. Outside of that, you could focus on intellect and strength as well. Intellect is for super cooldown, and then strength is for melee cooldown. You could potentially do recovery as well, considering this is tied to how fast you can get that healing rift, but again, the main two are resilience and discipline. Now for your weapon options, again, the main thing here is the Wishkeeper bow in the primary slot, but if you didn't want to use this, again, there are plenty of strand primary weapons like Rufus Fury, Quicksilver Storm, Michael's Reverence. Again, sidearms do have anti-barrier this time around. If you did want to use a special weapon, the Scatter Sigil this time with Slice Control Burst or Overflow Control Burst, fantastic. I have this Swordbreaker here, Slide Shot 1-2 Punch, not super effective on the Warlock in particular versus something like Banner War Titan, but again, it is a strand weapon you could potentially use. But again, I do want to show off the Wishkeeper as a staple of the build because of the Suspend and Strand bonuses it can get, so I would recommend a Solar Special Weapon. Again, I have this Acacia Ejection here. It allows for me to hit those precision shots and get rapid kills, has Reconstruction, Incandescent. The thing is very solid, so again, I could become Radiant. That gives me Kindling Trigger with Torch mainly, but if I do get a precision kill while I'm Radiant, it can cause an ignition with Rays of Precision. If I didn't want to use this, I could use a Cartesian Coordinate led from gold with Vorpal Weapon. This thing is fantastic. Banshee sells it. Sometimes he has a god roll, sometimes he doesn't. Would definitely wait for one that has Vorpal Weapon. But if I did want to use a special weapon in the primary slot, like my Scatter Sigil, I could potentially use, a weapon that can come with Incandescent, the Epichal Integration Hand Cannon. I don't have it on here, but you could definitely get it. Have this Abyss Defiant Incandescent, Callous Mini Tool, obviously a classic Incandescent. The new Pulse Rifle, I shouldn't say new, but returning Pulse Rifle that had Hortative Heal Clip Incandescent. If you want to use a exotic, Sunshot is fantastic this season, especially with the hand cannon buff last season. You have a variety of options. And for your heavy weapon, just rock whatever your favorite solar heavy weapon is, as long as it's legendary, so you can continue using the bow. I have this Apex Predator crafted, Recon Bait and Switch. If I want to use something that's more precision oriented, I have this Cataclysmic 4 times the charm bait and switch. If for some reason you're not using the Wishkeeper and you're not using an exotic special, you could potentially use something like Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath this season is fantastic. You could use Galahorn if your teammates need it, but again, put on your favorite solar heavy. Now, if you got through all that and you're still a little confused about how this build works, I'm going to break it down for you. But honestly, as long as you're using your abilities in tandem with the bow, you can take advantage of a lot of great strand debuffs on top of great orb generation, gaining woven mail, and bonus weapon damage. The main thing with this build is the amount of suspend and unravel you can cause. So again, with the suspend portion, before you go into an engagement, you consume that shout grenade, gain Weaver's Trance, and then any weapon final blow will suspend those targets around them. Plus, if you're using the Wishkeeper bow, not only can you get the precision hits of final blows to get Snare Weaver, again, you hit fire that'll suspend targets that, you know, trip any of the wires, but with its Silkbound Slayer, any target that's suspended, no matter what, whether it's from Weaver's Trance, the bow itself, you know, the Wander, because when you destroy that tangle, it'll suspend those targets as well. You gain bonus damage with the bow from any target that's suspended, no matter what. And on top of that, you're constantly causing unravel. You know, with the Swarmers, every threadling that you have will cause unravel when you destroy a tangle. So that means the tangle that you destroy that costs suspend also spawns threadlings that can spawn unravel, which sends out those projectiles as well. Plus, when you pick up an Orb of Power, now the bow gains unraveling rounds because it's a strand weapon, and any target that you basically deal damage to, whether you kill them or not. It says occasionally with Horde Shuttle on the artifact, but it's fairly often. Basically, any target you kill has a very high chance to also drop another Threadling on top of that. So you're taking advantage of Threadlings without even having to have the Threadling grenade on, the grapple melee, anything like that. Our fragments are bonuses. You know, any damage you deal gives you grenade energy. Picking up Orbs of Power gives you woven mail. Your Threadlings are just better because of Thread of Evolution. And with Thread of Wisdom, any target that you suspend and then defeat is also another Orb of Power, which means you can continue re-procking woven mail, but also get your super back faster on top of keeping up the Solar and Strand Weapon Surge that are on the boots. So both of those weapon types can have more damage. And speaking of the solar portion, I haven't even talked about that yet. The main thing with Flint Striker, again, as long as you defeat targets with a solar weapon rapidly, guess what? You gain Radiant, which means you can scorch unscorched targets, cause ignitions with precision kills, but Torch is the main one because while you're Radiant, you deal increased weapon damage to anything affected by a Strand debuff. And since you're causing constant Strand debuffs, if you are Radiant while you are doing literally anything, guess what? You're dealing bonus weapon damage for free. Your mods are honestly just bonuses for, you know, ability regen, orb generation, the bonus weapon damage, getting health back when picking up orbs with recuperation. That's kind of the main point with the mods. Everything else is really based on just, are you going to be using your abilities and are you going to be shooting things with your weapons, which, again, we all love abusing abilities and our weapons in Destiny 2. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Season of the Wishkeeper Warlock build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm actually going to put the dim link for this build in the description. So if you want to copy everything that I'm using, down to the subclass, the weapons, even the armor mods, even the drip, if you'd like. People are always asking me about, you know, ornaments and shaders and stuff like that. All that will be included in the dim link. And test out for yourself and let me know what you guys think. Is there something you like using with this build? If you don't want to use Wishkeeper, like I said, that's totally fine. You can still take advantage of all the benefits with this build with the other weapons that I mentioned. Build crafting isn't this end-all be-all thing. It's something that we all are allowed to play around with. So definitely use what you like using. In any event, if what you saw was valuable or entertaining to you, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on another build video here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok simultaneously across the board. So if you want to tune into a live stream, again, we will be live 3 days a week in the evening starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are mainly going to be playing Destiny 2. Again, we are doing dungeon carries, Warlord's Ruin dungeon carry, so if you need help with it, we can definitely get you in the queue. But we're also going to be playing other games, and if you want to be proactive, join my Discord, because that's where we're going to be chatting, and we also have people looking to play Destiny 2 together, and we're also talking about other games, PC tech, anime, and more. And lastly, if you want to support the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it is cheaper, and the main benefit with it is you get access to all of my videos early as a member, no matter what tier you are. But there are some other benefits in there that I would recommend checking out. And if you would like more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and I'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.